Hey y'all, Shelly here. In today's lesson, we are going to practice business English. We are going to practice how to do an interview in English. In today's lesson, we are going to do a speaking practice. First, we're going to practice a dialogue together. After that, I'm going to give you some tips, some advice, some do's and don'ts for interviews. And then finally, you will get a chance to practice doing an interview in English. So make sure you watch until the very end so you can practice your English. Okay, let's get started. In this first part, let's practice our speaking. I'll read black, you read red. Hello, thank you for coming in today. How are you? All right, shall we start? First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Shelly. Let's start with you introducing yourself and giving me some brief background information. Excellent. Please tell me about one of your personal achievements while working at ABC Designs. That's definitely a great experience. So next, please tell me about one of your strengths and weaknesses. Do you have any questions for me? Okay, so now let's switch. Next, you are the interviewer, I'm the interviewee. I'll read black, you read red. I'm good, thanks. Thank you very much for meeting with me today. Sure, my name is Shelly. I graduated from SCS University with a major in graphic design. I also did a one-year internship at ABC Designs as an assistant graphic designer. I think my biggest personal achievement was being assigned to lead a project for one of our clients. It was a big responsibility and it gave me a lot of experience to lead a team. That's a tough question. I think one of my strengths is I'm very detail oriented and I'm very comfortable leading a team. I think one of my weaknesses though is I have a tendency to take on too much. Yes. What are the primary responsibilities for this position? All right, so that was a sample interview. How did you do? Were you able to speak along quickly? If it was a little bit difficult, just rewatch that part and practice your speaking, practice your shadowing and fluency with me. In the next part of the video, we are going to be practicing some do's and don'ts, some tips for interviews. I'm going to separate it into three parts. We're going to talk about before the interview, we're going to talk about during the interview, and finally, we will talk about after the interview. So with this lesson, you should be prepared to do an interview in English. All right, let's go. Okay, so now, next, we're going to go over some of the do's and don'ts, the tips for the interview. First, let's talk about before the interview. Before the interview, the first thing you have to do is plan your outfit. Make sure that you are dressed professionally. You have to go to an interview dressed professionally. Second, research the company. Make sure you know the basic information about this company because they will ask you questions about that. Before you go to the interview, it's also a good idea when you're talking to this company via email, you should ask them if there will be more than one interviewer during the interview. It's always really important to know the environment that you will be in. If there's one interviewer or if there's 2 or 3 or 4 is a big difference. So if you know there will be 4 interviewers or 1 interviewer or 2 interviewers, it will really help your psychological preparation for this interview. The last advice I'll give you about an interview before you go is practice. Practice, practice, practice. You really need to practice the interview. So, with a friend, ask him or her to help you with this preparation. But lucky for you, today I'm here. We will practice together. At the very end of this video, you will get a chance to practice your interview. Okay, so next, let's go over the actual interview process. During the interview, the interviewer will ask you some questions. So let's go over some of the more common questions they will ask you. One of the most common questions they will ask you is, tell me about yourself. To answer this question, it shouldn't be longer than 30 seconds, okay? You only want about 30 seconds to tell them about yourself. So this means you want to give your academic highlights. That means the important parts of your education and the important parts of your work experience. You don't need to go into every little detail. 30 seconds is enough. Another very common question is the interviewer will ask you, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Now, it's very important here that you are honest. Do not say, oh, I have no weakness, I'm perfect, because everybody has a weakness. So it's important that you actually tell them a weakness. But we want the weakness to be kind of positive. Now, in the sample conversation, my weakness was, oh, I have a tendency to take on too much. This means I try to do too much. I want more responsibility. Maybe it's a little bit too much. I chose this weakness because it shows that I have initiative, that I'm willing to work hard. If you are a new graduate, you've just graduated university and you're going for your first job interview, then maybe a weakness would be, as a new graduate, maybe my biggest weakness would be I don't have as much real life experience as other people. You have to tell them what your strengths are as well. So it's really important that you are honest. Don't give them a fake strength because they will find out during the interview process or if you're hired. Now, give them a strength. For me personally, I always say I'm very good at working under pressure. Stressful situations are always okay for me. And I know it's something that interviewers also like to hear, but I'm being honest. So please be honest with your strengths. Another common question they will ask you is, why do you want to work here? Now, it's a tough question because the reality is many people want to work at different companies because we want a salary, we want money, we want safety. But if you are in an interview, you really need to want them to want to hire you. So personally, the words I think that are very useful for this question, the one word I think which is very useful is passion. I am passionate. I have passion. For me, I would answer this question by saying, I'm very passionate about something. And I know your company is a leader in that same thing. So I feel we would make a great fit. Now, this is showing them that you have passion and how we would mesh together. Another very common question they will ask you is, what do you know about our organization? Now, if you do not know anything, it is a big, big red flag. So, like I said before, make sure you research the company. Make sure you know what they do. Make sure you know their basic operations. The last thing I will say about during the interview, they will ask you a lot of questions, more than what we've talked about today. The one thing I would really suggest is make sure you're not negative about a previous employer. You know, your previous company, your previous boss, maybe your previous teacher or school. Do not be negative about them. Don't say anything bad about those people, because that also raises red flags. So be careful. Just be positive. Talk about yourself. Talk about how you will fit with that company. Okay, so we've gone over some questions now that are very commonly asked during an interview process. Next, let's go over body language. Okay, body language is very important in all communication. And in an interview, it's really important. So make sure you are not crossing your arms. You know, crossing your arms is showing that you're very closed. I am not, receptive of you. I don't want to talk to you. This is not good. Make sure your arms are open. Okay, we have that open gesture here. Okay. Next, it's really important that I have eye contact. We're always having eye contact. Don't look somewhere else. When you're talking, don't look up, don't look down. You're always looking the interviewer in the eye. Next thing is when you're sitting, make sure you're not slouching. We don't want to sit like this. We want to be sitting straight up. Okay, don't slouch. Sit straight up. Have eye contact. When you walk into an interview, one of the first things that will happen is they will introduce themselves, or they will welcome you, and they will extend their hand. This means you are going to have to shake their hands. And a handshake is very, very important in Western culture, especially USA and Canada. Now, handshake, it must be firm, but it shouldn't be too hard. You're not trying to, hurt their hand. It's not a battle to see who is stronger. A firm handshake. Now, for girls, this doesn't mean you're a princess. You're not putting your hand like this for them to kiss it. It's not a princess. Firm handshake. For guys, your hand shouldn't be a wet noodle, right? That is not very, very comfortable. It's actually very uncomfortable for the other person. Make sure you have a firm handshake. Personally, I like to do 1, 2, 3 and release. Okay, 1, 2, 3 is fine. Be careful of how many shakes you do. We don't want to do more than 3. The last advice I'll give you about the interview process is to make sure you have your questions ready. Asking a question during the interview process is very important. Next, I'll give you 3 questions that I usually use. Question number 1. What are the primary responsibilities of this position? Question 2. What would my day-to-day routine look like if I got this position? Question 3. What's the next step in the interview or hiring process? Okay, so now let's look after the interview. You've done the interview, you've left the company, you're at home now. One of the first things you should do is send a thank you email to whoever interviewed you. The next thing you should do, and it's very difficult, I know this is very difficult from personal experience, the next thing you have to do is be patient. They will not decide this the same day. They are interviewing many people, So it might take some time, so just be patient. Okay, so we've gone over some tips, some do's and don'ts for before the interview, during the interview, and after the interview. Hopefully that helps. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comment section below. And while I'm saying that, this would be a great time for me to ask you, please subscribe to this channel. It's completely free. And give me a thumbs up and hit the notification bell so you know when I'm posting my next video. At the beginning of this video, we practice a speaking section. I read black, you read red. Next, let's do the speaking again. But this time, let's practice your interview. Let's imagine this is your interview. I'm going to read black. You're going to give me your original answer. This is a chance for you to speak and to practice an actual interview. So in this next section, I'll read black. You give me your original answer. Hello, thank you for coming in today. How are you? All right, shall we start? First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Shelly. Why don't we start by you introducing yourself and giving me some brief background information. Excellent. Why don't you tell me about one of your personal achievements while working at this company? That is definitely a great experience. Next, tell me about your strengths and weaknesses. Do you have any questions for me? Okay, so how'd you do? Were you able to answer all of the questions easily, quickly, and fluently? If you couldn't, don't worry. Just rewatch that part again and keep practicing. Before you have an interview, I would suggest to rewatch this part and practice as much as you can. The more you practice, the easier the interview will be. Now, this is also a great time for me to ask you, if you like this video, please subscribe to this channel. It's completely free. Give me a thumbs up and hit the notification bell so you know when I post the next video. If you have any questions about this lesson, about interviews, please leave them down below. So, until the next lesson, see ya. Thank you for watching today's lesson on interviews. I hope this lesson helped you a lot. Make sure you keep practicing a lot, because the more you practice, the better your interview will be. And remember, if you like this video, please subscribe to this channel, give me a thumbs up, and hit the notification bell. And you can see on the screen, there's some other videos here. Please watch those when you have a chance. Until the next time, see ya.